The sun rose slowly over the endless horizon of a primeval earth. It was a world that looked both familiar and alien. Vast forests of towering ferns, swamps alive with giant insects, plains that stretched out into the unknown, and rivers that carved their way through valleys filled with mist. The air was
Look!
heavy with the scent
What
of
is
damp
this
soil
magic?
and wild grass. This was
It's
an
so
Earth
warm.
millions of years ago when survival was not just
Ayla,
a
get it!
challenge,
Over here!
but a daily war. Among this ancient land lived the
Raka,
first humans,
use the axe!
not yet like the people of today, but beings caught between ape and man. Their backs were straighter, their hands cleverer, their minds beginning to unlock the spark of thought. But their world was still ruled by tooth and claw. A small band of these early humans huddled near the mouth of a cave, the morning light casting long shadows over their bodies. Their skins were rough, covered in dirt and scratches from the wild. Their hair hung thick and tangled around their faces. They had no language as we know it, only grunts, cries, and gestures. Yet within their eyes burned something powerful, awareness, a desire not just to live, but to overcome. The leader of this group was Raka, a strong male with broad shoulders and scars on his arms from battles with beasts. He was not the oldest, but his strength and courage made others follow him. Beside him sat Ayla, a young woman with sharp eyes that noticed everything, the way the wind carried scent, the way birds scattered when danger approached, the smallest sound in the tall grass. Ayla was different. She was curious, and in her curiosity lay the seed of something that would change humanity forever, the will to learn. That morning, their group had no food. The night had been harsh. Cold winds had swept down from the mountains, and the fire they had tried to keep alive had burned out. Their stomachs growled, and the children whimpered in hunger. Raka rose to his feet and motioned to the hunters. They would go out into the wilderness. Today, they would find prey or death. Chapter 2. The Hunt Begins. The hunters carried only the simplest of weapons, sharpened sticks hardened by fire and stones they could throw. They had no bows, no arrows, no traps beyond the most primitive ones made from vines and pits. But they had something that no beast had, the ability to plan together. Raka led them into the grasslands. The morning dew wet their feet, and insects buzzed in clouds around their faces. In the distance, herds of giant beasts grazed, strange creatures now lost to time. Massive woolly animals with curved tusks, long-necked deer that stood taller than a man, and wild horses that ran in powerful herds. But the hunters knew their limits. To face such beasts with only sticks was suicide. They needed something smaller. Suddenly Ayla froze. She raised her hand, pointing toward a patch of reeds near the river. The men crouched low, following her gaze. There, drinking from the water's edge, was a wild boar. Its body was thick and muscular, its tusks sharp enough to tear flesh. A dangerous animal, but one that could feed the clan for days. Raka's eyes gleamed. He gestured to the others, pointing in a wide arc. The hunters began to move silently through the grass, circling the animal. Each step was careful, each breath controlled. The boar lifted its head once, sniffing the air, but saw nothing. Then, with a sudden cry, Raka lunged forward. The others rushed in, shouting and waving their arms. The boar squealed in panic, turning to run. But the humans had trapped it between the reeds and the river. Spears thrust forward, sharp tips stabbing into its side. The beast thrashed violently, goring one man's leg with its tusk, but Raka leapt upon its back, driving his weapon deep into its neck. The struggle was brutal, bloody and raw. When it was over, the boar lay still, its hot blood steaming in the cool morning air. The hunters panted, their bodies trembling from adrenaline. They had won. Today, their people would eat. Chapter 3. Fire and Feast. The boar's body was dragged back to the cave. The women and children rushed out, eyes wide with relief and hunger. Stones were struck together until sparks flew, igniting dry grass. A fire roared to life, its smoke curling into the air. The smell of roasting meat filled the camp. For the first time in days, the people ate until their bellies were full. Grease ran down their chins, and bones cracked under their teeth. The children laughed and played, gnawing on scraps. But Ayla did not eat much. She sat apart, staring into the flames. Fire fascinated her. To the others, it was only a tool, something to cook meat and scare predators. To Ayla, it was more. She reached out her hand, feeling the warmth, watching the way the flames danced. In that fire she saw power, a force that could change everything. Later that night, as the tribe slept, Ayla stayed awake, feeding the flames with twigs and dried leaves. She whispered to it, as if it could hear her. Deep in her heart, she felt that fire was not just a gift, but a weapon, one that could protect them from the dangers of this cruel world. Chapter 4. The Night of Predators. The wilderness was never silent. In the darkness, eyes glowed and voices of the night rose in eerie chorus. The humans slept uneasily inside the cave, huddled close to the fire. Suddenly, a roar split the air. The children screamed, and the adults sprang up in panic. At the mouth of the cave stood a predator, a massive saber-toothed cat, its fangs gleaming in the firelight. Its eyes burned with hunger as it stepped forward, muscles rippling under its golden fur. Raka seized a spear, shouting fiercely, trying to drive it away. But the cat did not fear him. It crept closer, growling low, ready to pounce. The tribe shrank back, terror in their eyes. Then Ayla did something no one expected. She grabbed a burning branch from the fire and held it high, the flames whipping in the air. With a scream that echoed through the cave, she charged at the beast. The saber-tooth froze, startled by the strange weapon of light and heat. It hissed, snarled, and finally turned, vanishing into the night. The tribe stared at Ayla in awe. She had not just defended them, she had shown them the true power of fire. From that night on, the flame became their guardian, their shield against the terrors of the dark. Chapter 5. Struggles of Survival. Life did not grow easier. Every day was a fight against hunger, cold, and death. The rains came, flooding the plains. The rivers swelled with force, sweeping away anything in their path. Insects swarmed in clouds, biting skin until it bled. When food was scarce, the tribe searched for roots and berries. Sometimes they ate bitter plants that made them sick. Children cried in hunger, their small bodies frail. Disease and injury were constant threats. A cut could fester into death, a broken bone could mean the end. But slowly, painfully, they learned. They learned which plants healed wounds, which roots gave strength, which berries were poison. They learned to track animals by footprints, to follow the cries of birds that signaled danger. They learned to sharpen stones into blades, to shape wood into stronger weapons. Every lesson was carved into their lives by suffering. Every mistake was paid for in blood. But with each passing season, they grew stronger. Chapter 6. The Great Beast. One day, as the hunters searched for prey, they came across something terrifying. In the distance, moving slowly across the plain, was a creature larger than anything they had ever seen. A woolly mammoth, its tusks long as tree branches, its body towering over the grass. The humans froze in fear. The beast was too massive to hunt. To attack it with sticks would be madness. Yet Raka's eyes gleamed with ambition. Such a creature could feed the tribe for weeks. The hunters followed it from a distance, studying its movements. Ayla frowned. She could see the danger, the madness of such a plan, but she also knew this was the path of humanity, to face the impossible, to rise above fear. That night, she sat by the fire, thinking. The mammoth was strong but not invincible. If they could trap it, use the land itself against it, perhaps they could succeed. For the first time, Ayla's mind began to shape true strategy, the beginning of what one day would become human intelligence. The hunt for the mammoth. The plan took days to prepare. The hunters studied the giant beast, learning its path across the plains. Every morning it came to the same river bend to drink. Every evening it wandered back toward the forest. Raka gathered the tribe, pointing at the ground with a sharp stick as he drew rough shapes in the dirt. Circles for hunters, lines for the river. He had no words to explain his thoughts, but his gestures were enough. The people understood. They would drive the mammoth into the soft earth near the river, where its weight would sink it deep. There, trapped, they could strike. The next morning, the tribe took their places. Hidden in tall grass, they waited, their bodies tense with fear. The air was heavy with silence. Then the ground began to tremble. The mammoth appeared, massive and unstoppable, its tusks curved like the moon. Raka gave the signal. The hunters burst from hiding, shouting and waving their spears. Ayla joined them, her heart pounding. The mammoth roared in fury, trumpeting so loudly the birds scattered from the trees. It turned to charge, but the humans darted aside, throwing stones and thrusting spears. Slowly, they pushed it toward the riverbank. The ground shook as the beast stepped into the soft mud. Its legs sank slightly, and it bellowed in alarm. Sensing weakness, the hunters grew bolder. They screamed and stabbed, driving it deeper. The mammoth thrashed wildly, swinging its tusks, knocking one man into the air with bone-shattering force. But the trap worked. With each step, the giant sank further. At last its legs stuck fast. Raka leapt forward, spear raised high. The hunters followed, stabbing again and again until the mammoth's roars faded into silence. When it was done, the tribe stood in awe. Before them lay a mountain of flesh. Never before had they killed such a beast. Its meat would last for many days, its hide would cover them from the cold, its bones would serve as tools. This was not just survival, this was victory. A feast of the giants. The mammoth's body was butchered with sharp stones. Strips of meat were carried back to the cave, fire crackling as the first pieces roasted. The smell was rich, heavy, and unlike anything they had ever eaten. Children laughed as grease dripped down their chins, and even the elders, frail and weary, smiled for the first time in weeks. Raka sat proudly by the fire, his chest rising with pride. He had led them to greatness. But Ayla's eyes were not only on the food. She studied the bones, the tusks, the tools that could be made. She thought of shelters built from such bones, of weapons tipped with ivory sharper than stone. She imagined a world where humans did not just follow the beasts, but ruled them. That night, as the tribe slept full and content, Ayla sat awake again, staring into the flames. The fire spoke to her, whispering of possibilities yet unseen, shadows of danger. But in the wilderness, triumph never lasted long. The carcass of the mammoth drew more than just the humans. On the second night, as the tribe feasted, glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. Wolves, dozens of them, their bodies lean and hungry, their teeth bared. They circled the camp, drawn by the scent of blood and meat. The tribe panicked, clutching their children, pressing close to the fire. Raka shouted, waving his spear. But the wolves were not afraid. They crept closer, snapping their jaws. Then Ayla seized a burning branch once more. She thrust it towards the nearest wolf, shouting with all her might. The beast yelped and leapt back. The others hesitated, growling low. Raka caught on quickly, grabbing his own torch. Soon every hunter held fire in his hands, forming a circle of flame around the camp. The wolves snarled, their eyes glowing in the firelight. But one by one they turned and slunk back into the shadows. That night the tribe understood something new. Fire was not just warmth, not just light. It was power, the first true weapon of man. The storm seasons changed swiftly in that ancient land. Rains swept over the plains, turning rivers into floods. The cave dripped with water, and the fire sputtered in the damp. The tribe huddled together, shivering, their bellies once again empty. During one storm, lightning split the sky, striking a tree near the camp. Flames leapt into the night, a burning giant of wood and leaves. The tribe cried out in fear, some fleeing, others bowing as if to a god. But Ayla ran forward, her eyes wide with wonder. She seized a branch from the burning tree and carried it back to the cave, shielding it with leaves from the rain. From that day, Ayla became the keeper of the fire. Whenever the flames threatened to die, she fed them. When they needed light, she built them. When danger came, she raised them like a shield. The others began to look at her differently, not just as another woman of the tribe, but as something more. The first burial, with survival, came loss. One morning a child grew weak, coughing blood. No roots or herbs could save him. His small body wasted away, and soon he lay still. The tribe gathered in silence, sorrow heavy in their hearts. Raka lifted the child in his arms and carried him beyond the cave. They dug into the earth with sharp stones, placing the body within. Flowers and leaves were laid over him, and for the first time the tribe wept together. It was more than death. It was memory. In that moment, humanity discovered mourning, the recognition that life was not only survival, but something sacred. Ayla watched, her heart aching. She felt something stir inside her, something she could not name, the knowledge that life was fleeting, and that the tribe's struggle was not just to live, but to remember. Fire against the night. As the seasons passed, new dangers came. A saber-tooth returned, larger than before, its hunger driving it closer to the cave. The tribe panicked once more, but this time they did not run. They carried their torches into the night, forming a wall of fire. The great cat snarled, circling, but it would not pass the flames. With shouts and thrusts of burning branches, the humans drove it back. At last it fled into the dark, defeated not by strength, but by the power of flame. That night, the tribe celebrated not just victory, but discovery. They had found a weapon greater than tooth or claw. Fire was theirs, and with it the world would slowly begin to change. Chapter 13. The Dream of Tomorrow. The nights grew warmer as spring returned. Plants blossomed, rivers ran clear, and herds returned to the plains. Life, though still harsh, grew more abundant. Ayla began teaching the children how to strike stones together to make sparks. She showed them how to find dry grass, how to shelter the flame from wind. She told them, not with words, but with gestures and signs, that fire was life. Raka watched her with pride, though part of him feared what he did not understand. Ayla's mind was sharp, her ideas strange, but her strength was undeniable. Together, they stood as leaders of the tribe, one with power, the other with vision. At night, Ayla dreamed of the future. She dreamed of shelters, built not in caves, but in open plains, of tools sharper than stone, of tribes growing larger, of voices becoming words. She dreamed of a people who would not only survive, but rise. Chapter 14. A New Beginning. The season of plenty could not last forever. As the mammoth meat dwindled and herds moved north, the grasslands grew emptier. The tribe, once strong, now faced hunger again. The children's laughter faded into whimpers, and the elders' eyes grew hollow. One night, while the fire flickered low, Raka stood before his people. He pointed toward the distant mountains, their peaks glowing in the moonlight. With gestures and guttural sounds he made his meaning clear. They must move. The cave had sheltered them through storms and predators, but it could no longer feed them. If they stayed, they would die. To live, they had to journey into the unknown. Ayla's heart pounded as she watched him. She feared what lay beyond the horizon, but deep inside, she knew this was the path of survival. Humanity was not meant to stay still. It was meant to wander. Chapter 15. The Great March. At dawn, the tribe set out. Men, women and children carried what little they had. Sharpened stones, animal hides and bundles of dried meat. The fire, precious and sacred, was carried in a hollowed-out bone filled with embers, wrapped in damp moss to keep it alive. The land stretched endlessly before them, rolling plains of grass, taller than a man, forests thick with shadows, rivers that roared with untamed force. Every step was a trial. Feet bled on sharp rocks, bodies ached from exhaustion. The children cried, but they were carried forward, for stopping meant death. Days turned into weeks. The tribe followed the herds, drank from streams and slept beneath the stars. At night, the fire was their only comfort, its glow pushing back the darkness. But danger followed. Predators stalked them in silence. Hunger gnawed at their bellies. The journey was more than a march. It was a battle against the very earth. Chapter 16. The River of Death. One evening the tribe came upon a river wider than they had ever seen. Its waters surged with terrible force, carrying broken trees and rocks in its current. They needed to cross. On the other side, Ayla could see forests alive with fruit and game, but the river was a roaring monster. The men tried first, tying vines around their waists and stepping into the current. The water pulled them off their feet instantly, dragging one man under. His cries vanished into the roar, leaving only silence. Panic spread. Some wanted to turn back, others to wait. But waiting meant hunger. Ayla studied the river, her sharp eyes scanning the banks. Then she saw it, a fallen tree stretching halfway across. With gestures, she showed the tribe. Slowly, carefully, they crawled across the trunk, gripping branches as the water raged below. Some slipped, but were pulled back. At last, one by one they crossed, exhausted, soaked, but alive. On the far side they collapsed in relief. They had beaten the river, together. Chapter 17. The Forest of Shadows. The forest welcomed them with cool shade, but it was no safe haven. Here predators lurked in silence, their eyes glowing from the undergrowth. Strange cries echoed at night, and the trees dripped with venomous serpents. Food was scarce. Fruits were bitter, roots hard to find. The hunters stalked through the shadows, but prey was swift and cunning. One night, as Ayla slept, she awoke to the sound of breaking branches. She grabbed a burning stick and crept outside. In the darkness, a pair of eyes glowed, not an animal's, but a human's. Across the clearing stood another tribe. Their bodies were scarred, their faces painted with ash. They carried clubs of wood and stone. For the first time, Ayla realized her people were not alone in this vast world. Chapter 18. First Encounter. The rival tribe did not attack at once. They watched, their eyes wary, their bodies tense. Raka raised his spear, growling low, warning them away. The strangers growled back, beating their chests, showing their teeth. Ayla stepped forward, holding out her hands. She remembered the mammoth hunt, the burial, the way her tribe had survived by learning. She placed a piece of dried meat on the ground and stepped back. The strangers eyed it, then one crept forward, snatching it quickly. They whispered among themselves, their voices sharp and strange. That night no blood was spilled, but Ayla knew this was only the beginning. Where there were other humans, there would be both friendship and war. Chapter 19. Fire and Stone. The forest taught the tribe many lessons. One day, Ayla found 2 stones that sparked brightly when struck. She experimented, her fingers blistered, but her mind alive with ideas. With time, she learned to create fire without lightning, without embers carried from before. When she showed the tribe, their eyes widened in awe. Fire was no longer a fragile treasure. It was a weapon they could summon at will. The hunters grew bolder. They used fire to drive animals from hiding, to keep predators at bay, to clear paths through the forest. With fire and sharpened stone, the humans became more than prey. They became hunters of the world itself. Chapter 20. The First War, but not all humans welcomed them. Weeks later, the rival tribe returned, not with gifts, but with weapons. They wanted food, fire, and land. The battle was brutal. Clubs smashed against skulls, stones cracked bones, screams filled the forest. Blood stained the earth. Raka fought like a beast, his spear sinking deep into enemies. Ayla swung a burning branch, driving attackers back. When the fight ended, bodies lay broken among the roots. The humans had faced not just beast, but man, and in that clash, a new truth was born. Humanity's greatest enemy was often itself. Chapter 21. Lessons of Blood. The victory was bitter. The tribe lost many of their own. Children wept, women wailed, and Ayla's heart ached. But the survivors grew harder. They learned that strength was not only in muscle, but in unity. They began building sharper weapons from stone, chipping edges into blades that cut deeper than wood. They tied stones to sticks, creating axe and hammers. Ayla's ideas spread through the tribe. They practiced together, hunted together, fought together. Slowly, painfully, humanity discovered something new: strategy. Chapter 22. The Long Hunger. Despite their weapons, hunger remained their greatest enemy. The forest could not feed them forever. Animals grew scarce, fruits withered in the heat of a long summer. Children's ribs showed beneath their skin, and even the strongest grew weak. One evening, as the fire burned low, Raka stood again before his people. He pointed to the horizon beyond the forest, where mountains rose into the clouds. Once again, it was time to move. Chapter 23. Toward the Mountains. The journey was harsher than before. The land grew rocky, the air thin. Winds howled through valleys, carrying snow even in summer. The tribe struggled. They wrapped themselves in hides, huddling close to fire. Their hands cracked with cold, their breath turned to mist. Many despaired, but Ayla urged them forward. She pointed to caves high in the cliffs, safe from predators, and streams running with clear water. At last, they reached a plateau overlooking the world below. From here, the land stretched endlessly. Forests, rivers, plains, all bathed in golden light. For the first time, Ayla felt something stir within her, the dream of belonging, not just to wander, but to build. Chapter 24. The Seeds of Tomorrow. In the caves, the tribe began to carve their lives into stone. They painted animals on the walls with crushed berries and ash, telling stories of the hunt, of the fire, of the dead. Children watched and learned. They copied the elders, shaping stones, striking sparks, painting with their fingers. Knowledge was no longer lost with death. It was passed down. And in that passing, humanity's greatest weapon was born: memory. Chapter 25. Life in the High Caves. The mountains gave both safety and hardship. From their high caves, the tribe could see the endless land below. But reaching food became harder each day. The air was thin. Biting cold pierced their skins, and storms struck without warning. Snow fell even when the plains below were green. Children cried from hunger. Elders struggled to breathe. Yet the caves offered shelter. Predators feared the heights, and the fire burned strong against the wind. The people learned to store meat in cracks of ice, keeping it fresh for weeks. They sharpened stones harder than any they had known before, flint, which split into razor edges. With these they carved bone into needles, piercing hides together to make tighter clothing. Though the cold was merciless, the tribe adapted. Chapter 26. The Howl of Wolves. One night, as snow swept across the mountains, a pack of wolves crept near the cave. Their eyes glowed in the firelight, their howls echoing against the cliffs. The tribe huddled in fear, clutching spears. Raka and the hunters stood ready to fight, but Ayla's gaze lingered on the wolves. For the first time, man and beast hunted together. From that day, some wolves never left. They lingered near the fire, their bodies warming against the humans at night. Fear turned into trust. Trust turned into bond. Humanity had gained its first ally. Chapter 28. The Stone That Cut Deeper. Life in the mountains forced new inventions. Flint tools became sharper, more reliable. Ayla discovered that if flint was struck just right, it could create blades thin as leaves but sharper than teeth. She showed the hunters how to bind them to wooden shafts with animal sinew, creating spears far deadlier than before. They learned to grind stone into axes, to cut wood and shape shelters. Bone needles stitched hides into cloaks, gloves and boots that kept them alive through the worst storms. The tribe was no longer just surviving. They were shaping the world around them. Chapter 29. The Fire in the Earth. But the mountains held dangers greater than wolves or snow. One morning, the ground shook. Stones fell from the cliffs, caves cracked, and the tribe fled in terror. Ayla clutched a child in her arms as the earth rumbled like a beast awakening. Smoke began to rise from a peak in the distance. The mountain bled fire, red rivers flowing down its sides, ash filling the sky. The air turned dark, choking their lungs. The tribe had no words for what they saw, only fear. To them, it was the anger of the earth itself. Raka led them away, stumbling through falling ash. For days the sky remained dark, the sun hidden, the land covered in black dust. Animals fled, rivers boiled, trees burned. The people wandered, coughing, hungry, terrified. But still, they walked. Still they lived. Chapter 30. Ash and Ice. When the fires of the earth finally quieted, the land was changed. Forests were gone, rivers blocked, plains buried in ash. The tribe could not stay. They moved north, chasing cleaner air, following herds that had fled the disaster. But the north brought new trials. Ice, endless and merciless. Glaciers spread like walls of white, winds cut like knives, and snow swallowed the earth. Many despaired. Children died in the cold. Elders could walk no more. Yet Ayla urged them onward. She showed them how to build shelters of snow and hide, how to use fire inside without smoke choking them. She taught them to follow wolves through the snow to find prey. Slowly, painfully, the tribe learned to live in the ice. Chapter 31. Bonds of Blood and Flame. The wolves became more than allies. They became family. One pup born in the snow, grew up beside the children. It guarded them, played with them, slept at their side. Raka, once distrustful, began to see their worth. He hunted with them, fought with them, shared his kills. Together, man and wolf became a force greater than either alone. Around the fire, the tribe painted wolves on the cave walls beside mammoths and deer. They painted fire, spears, and the sun. They told stories, not with words, but with cries, gestures, and pictures. Stories of survival, stories of the earth, stories of themselves. Chapter 32. The Long Night. The Ice Age deepened. Winters lasted longer than summers. Nights stretched endlessly. Hunger returned again and again, a shadow they could never escape. But now, humanity was different. They had wolves to guard them, stone blades to arm them, fire to protect them, and memory to guide them. Every struggle carved them sharper. Every loss made them stronger. They were no longer prey trembling in caves. They were hunters, wanderers, survivors, and though they did not know it, they carried within them the future of all humankind. Part 4. Fire, Fear, and the First Hunt. The jungle air grew colder as the sun sank beneath the horizon. Shadows stretched across the dense undergrowth, and the cries of birds gave way to the shrill calls of night insects. For the group of early humans, night was always the most dangerous time. Predators lurked everywhere: saber-toothed cats, hyenas with bone-crushing jaws, and massive snakes slithering through the underbrush. Ayla sat close to the others, shivering. The group had gathered dry twigs and leaves during the day, trying something new, something Raka, the tall and broad-shouldered leader, had been attempting for many moons. He had seen lightning set trees aflame once, and ever since he had tried to capture that power himself. Tonight, determination burned in his eyes. He picked up 2 dry sticks and rubbed them furiously together, his strong hands moving in rhythm. At first, nothing happened but the squeak of wood against wood. Frustration grew, but Ayla watched closely. Her sharp eyes caught the faint wisp of smoke rising. She gasped, pointing, and the group leaned forward in awe. Raka bent lower, blowing gently on the ember. Sparks glowed, smoke thickened, and then, suddenly, a tiny flame flickered alive. The group froze in silence, stunned. "Fire,"